here we are. We're ready. We're ready to go for another Pointless Automotive podcast. We're out of our normal element.
Yeah,
today there, Chadwick.
There's not enough grimy garage around me.
Yeah, garage is few and far between, but not that far. We are actually surrounded by vehicles, which is kind of what we're used to. We are hanging out. We're at a place called Car Park. That's cars with a K. Over here in Pleasanton, California. They are a top flight, high-end enthusiast car storage facility. And I've got a tenuous connection to these guys. I do some photo work for them, and they were gracious enough to let us hang out in a new spot.
Right, yeah.
And see the sights and the sounds. There's 60 plus cars here, not a loser in the bunch.
Yeah, that's the sound of a Ferrari driving. Well, now we got a Corvette.
C2 Corvette.
So, a little different than the Ford Escort noises you might hear around my place.
Yeah, exactly, or crickets or whatever. But yes, so that's what we're doing today. We're going to be recording here today. We might record a couple other episodes. I think it would be fun to get some guests here, whether it's any of the guys associated with Car Park or anywhere else. But they were, again, I'm going to say it one more time, Car Park, because they're nice and they're letting us use some of their space.
Yeah, and it looks to be one of the best solutions if you have a car you really care about and you don't want it collecting dust in your driveway, or if you have parking restrictions. You know, if you have a really nice car and you want someone to look after it.
How dare you attack me like that with my currently 4 street parked cars?
I mean, I only have a few outside all the time.
Yeah, it's yeah. So if you actually care about your stuff and they're worth more than $2,500, which is about what I traffic in.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, and there's a lot of these facilities. There's actually not a lot here in the San Francisco Bay Area, which stunningly so. There's a few, but with the amount of cars and money that's around here, you'd think there'd be more.
Yeah, and this place is fantastic. So
yeah, it's really cool. They do a good job here. So we're gonna leech off of their resources here and use their electricity and their Wi-Fi and their facility
and
their beer. Yes, they had there's the mountains. They're bluish.
Yeah, C minus. The price was right.
That's true. We'll take it. And we're gonna use all of these resources to discuss something that's kind of in vogue right now. People are talking about it. People are talking about the Z?
We're gonna catch some Z's.
We might catch some Z's. Hopefully contract a disease.
I knew it.
Bitch, please, you must have a mental disease. We have the new Z. It's out. It's about, and then of course a slew of old Z's. But
yeah.
Why don't we're going to talk all things Z today, and I think we want to talk about. Should we just start off with the new one?
Yeah, let's talk about the new guy.
The new hotness.
Yeah, the FNG.
Tell me. Yeah, exactly.
Freaking new guy.
Tell me about the freaking new guy.
So, if you've probably been under a rock for the past few days, or weeks, or depending on when this podcast comes out.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe.
Yeah, once the journalists get their hands on a new car, especially something that's been anticipated as much as a new Z. I know it's really funny because we all joke about how old is the 370Z, right? But
it's pre-Cambrian, really.
It is, right? It's a crank start. But you look back, and the Zs tended to have very long lives. Like Nissan really did keep a Z for the most part for a long time, and now they finally replaced it, just calling the new version the Z, the Nissan Z. So, but this new one, considerable changes over the 370Z. We are talking about bringing turbos back into the equation for a Z car.
Yes.
Which was actually a long-running tradition. We'll get into that for sure.
Yeah.
New guy is posting 400 horsepower out of a twin-turbo 3-liter V6.
Correct. Yes, it is.
And that's a good number. It's a real good number.
That's healthy. Yeah, and it's funny, though. We're so jaded now. Like, that would have been back when the last time we had a turbo Z, the twin-turbo, the Z72. Just if they had some highfalutin factory 400 horsepower 6-speed version, that would have been, hypercar territory.
Right, yeah.
And now it's it's acceptable.
Yeah.
Which is just wild to think about, how far we've come.
It's borrowed from their Infiniti,
Sure.
But still great power. I called that back when they started talking about it. I'm like, they've got the engine right there,
But what's cool is that you actually have transmission choices.
It's the best part.
Yeah.
It's the best part, man. 6-speed manual.
Yeah.
And you have a 9-speed auto.
Correct. Yeah, 9-speed auto, which is torque converter, right? It's not like a DCT or anything.
No, it's just, good old reliable, right?
Yep.
Why reinvent the wheel?
I assume that's the same out of the Infiniti, right?
Maybe spiced up a little bit for
sure
quicker shifts. I think the engine too is it's the same output, but it doesn't have the same personality. You know, because
Yeah,
that
I
car,
would
it's
assume, at
really
least
like,
tuned.
yeah, it's really sedate, really smooth power application to fit with the Infinity line. Well, I don't know what Infinity is anymore, but
Yeah, Q something. That's all
Q
I know.
something.
Exactly. Oh, I drive a Q whatever.
Cool.
Q rating. It's just, yeah. But no, it's 6-speed manuals.
oh yeah,
And that's kind of, honestly, that kind of makes the car. I mean, if you can imagine if they did what Toyota/BMW did with the Supra, and if they just pushed it out with the auto only.
right.
Granted, that car's auto is, I'm sure, a better unit than this 9-speed. But, like, that's what makes the car. That and, I mean, well, that and pricing, right? Because
Yep, it comes in a bit below.
I think the base is 41, and then they have the performance spec, which
Yep.
you get like LSD and some things.
and it bumps it
leather.
to 50.
It's real
plus,
effort.
yeah.
Yeah, 51, I think. And what I think early reports are in, and it's doing what, like high 12s, mid to high 12s, I think, in a quarter.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good.
Yeah, and fours, realistic on the. I bet the test reviews, even for the manual, will be high fours, mid fours to high fours.
Yeah, probably mid, maybe even low, depending on how aggressive they are.
The automatic for sure, because the automatic's going to be a little quicker.
That's true.
That's
It'll
always
probably
the
have
case.
launch control and all that fun stuff.
But just good, wholesome manual rear-wheel drive sports car. I mean,
It is. It is. How do you feel about it? I mean, on paper, it's cool.
on paper, but I love the design. I love
Yeah.
the fact that they looked at, because they have quite a palette, right? The Z's all varied, and I think the Z's are all striking in their own way. I don't think there was a Z I didn't like, and even the bloated, 280ZX, right? That
Yeah.
often was criticized for being too much of a luxury car, and we'll talk more about that too. More opulent,
The best and the
I
worst
still
of
think
the
it
series.
looks cool. It's a cool looking car.
It is. Now, I like.
The 300ZX twin turbo. I love the Z32. I think that looks cool.
But I do like that because the easy, lazy thing would have been to kind of go back to like the 05 Mustang route and just go, hey, we'll pick our favorite generation and we'll just make a modern interpretation of that. Which there is absolutely plenty of 240Z in this car.
Right.
But they didn't just go ham-fisted, over-the-top, retro, and they did add other elements of other Zs in it. You've got like the Z32 tail light treatment,
Which is gorgeous.
which is great. I love the
Nailed
back
it.
end of the new
Oh,
car.
They nailed it.
I generally speaking, of course, I've yet to see one in the flesh. I've yet to drive one, but both on paper and in seeming execution, better than I would have anticipated.
Oh.
If you would have said like, oh, they're bringing back the Z, especially the current and recent history state of Nissan in general, whether they've got, they're chasing their CEO to Southern California, and
Who's smuggled out of the country in a audio equipment box?
just
By some
absolute
ex-special forces guy?
Yeah, just
Oh,
weird,
what a
weird
story.
stuff, and just like a terrible lineup of cars, and just utterly forgettable. This is kind of exactly what they needed, which is not unforgettable, and it seems to be. They did a good job with it. It seems like it's all Nissan.
It is all Nissan. It's all Japanese. It's all built in Japan. Everything's built by the
Which
manufacturer, and that's
I'm good with. Like, I'm okay.
very good with.
Compared to I think the most apt comparison on this thing would be to compare it to the Supra, which I've mentioned, the Mark V Supra, because that was, a dead nameplate, although that had a little bit more, I don't want to say cachet, but, that was like the, when's Half-Life 3 coming out joke, where it was like, the new Supra is coming, it's 2 years away, here's a render, and it's like, that was going on for 15 plus years, and so now that car has come back, that's a car that, I've been a fan of the Supra forever, make no bones about that, but that car was very much a disappointment for me.
I know
good on paper, but then it's just a BMW.
In test, right? In test results, the car shines.
Yeah.
It punches well above its weight. It's actually in all the drag race videos. If you haven't seen them yet, guys, the new Z doesn't compare to the Supra.
We should get into doing that. Should we make our own drag race
race
videos?
videos.
Except it'll be with like a Ford Tempo all-wheel drive, and then like a diesel Isuzu iMark.
Yeah.
Who will win?
5,000 RPM clutch dumps. And
Yeah. But no, you're
Can't
right.
do
Like those cars, they perform very well, but it's not. So this new Z car is it's a Z car.
Yeah.
The new Supra it's not even a new Supra. It's not even a Toyota.
Yeah.
It's every single thing. It's like if you ever look inside, it's just like you blink through a couple of times and then you forget you're looking inside a Toyota because you're not. You're looking at the inside of a BMW.
The exterior is the only Toyota thing.
Yeah, you open the door and it's got the BMW doo-doo, like chime.
Under the hood is all BMW. Everything's
BMW. It's a BMW, and so.
But Nissan nailed it though. Let's talk about price point.
Yeah.
You can get into the Z. Yeah, you don't get all the bells and whistles at the 40,000 level, but you're still coming in lower price than a 4-cylinder Supra.
Exactly, which is, again, it's a 4-cylinder BMW. And like, you buy a Z car because it's a Nissan and because it's got reliability and history baked into it, and it's always been
the Z badge
alternative to
the throwback to the 240.
Exactly,
I love that stuff, man.
And that's what the Supra should have been. It's just like, hey, Toyota's sports car. You buy it because it's a Toyota, and you've got this bulletproof.
Oh man,
and reliability, and maybe it's a little bit behind in the times as far as tech. But it's absolutely bomb-proof, and you can modify it. That's not BMW's literally the antithesis of that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And so that's why I think that car is going to be a failure is too strong of a word, but I think that's why this new Z car will succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Is because it is a Nissan, and okay, some stuff's carried over from the old car, fine. Can you feel it when you drive it? Probably not. Can you see it in some of the interior bits? Maybe. I haven't been in one, and it's been a while since I've been in a 370, but I'm okay with that if it means you get an actual Nissan, that you're getting an actual product, that's what you're buying. It's ironic that, we were just talking about captive imports the other day.
Right.
That Supra's kind of like a captive import special.
Yeah.
And this Nissan is all Nissan, and that makes me really happy for it. And you said it. I think it looks great, and it looks really good. And we are in the era of manufacturers trying to find ways to get these sports cars to market. And I'd rather have them recycle some stuff out of the old car than go halvesies on it with another manufacturer.
I think that's always been the Z history too. They always use a little bit of that carryover tech, but also I think one of the funniest things, man, is the Z, the announcement, the launch date's getting closer. What does Toyota BMW do? Here comes a manual Supra, guys.
Yeah,
right.
I haven't done my homework on that. Is that going to be on both the 4-cylinder and the 6-cylinder car, or just
That's a good question. I'm assuming both. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And now you're going to have all these Z4 people like, well, can't you just put it in the Z4 now because it's the same damn car?
What, didn't it have it though? The Z4 had the manual option.
Did it?
Yeah, that was the funniest thing.
Okay, you know what? I think you're right.
I think that's it.
Right.
So the Z4 guys actually had a little edge there.
That's right. Yeah.
Roof comes off and I can row my own.
It's kind of a better deal. I mean, I haven't driven those cars back to back, but I mean, as much of a Supra guy as I am, like, I kind of think I'd rather have the Z4.
Isn't that funny?
It's silly.
Wow. Yeah, I'm super pumped. I'm glad. I'm down with all the decisions Nissan made in this case. I'm super glad like they tied in their history with all the different design cues, but also keeping it real with a manual transmission. And the interior does look cool. So all the interior video I've seen, like it's not too like overburdened with tech.
Right.
So there's still analog gauges mixed in.
Yeah, you got the little binnacle like on the top of the dash,
awesome.
Which is traditional Z thing.
Throwback, but the whole gauge cluster is digital, which is super cool on that one. So I don't know. It just I don't know. It's a simple interior, and I love it. It's not trying to be anything that it shouldn't be.
It doesn't have iDrive 11.0.
Yeah.
No, it's cool. I think it's going to be, it has the tech in the limited places where you want it, like in the infotainment, which is a smaller screen, which I'm cool with. I don't need the double stack iPad XXL, Magic Mike XXL edition.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's seemingly hit a home run now. Granted, we haven't driven any of this. Nissan, if you're listening, react.
Yeah, please. Out of modern sports cars, it's the one I'm more motivated to buy right now. If I had to buy something coming out, it's 2023.
Maybe the BRZ 86 Twins.
Yeah, I think I like the Z a little more.
I do too. But if I had to like say like, hey, I can't spend that much money on the Z, GR Corolla. Although it's a different car,
different animal, yeah.
Different animal. I mean, I need a back seat, so I'd probably go in that direction. But either way, I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking some really, really, really cool cars, and this slots right in with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is cool. And this is we've both individually owned Z cars in our past.
Some of that Z history. Right?
Mine, both on a somewhat limited basis, but two very different cars, and we've got a little bit of tie in to wanting these cars to be nice and do well. Do you want to talk about the older cars? Do you want to just go in like chronological orders, or do you want to just talk about what you had?
Yeah, let's go in reverse chronological. And then
you ever spend a lot of time reverse chronological? So you want to talk about the 370, or you want to go?
Yeah, let's go 370 recent chronological back.
Yeah. We'll slowly go back in time. Got to get back in time.
370Z. Yeah.
370. I've not spent a ton of time with 370. I briefly drove an automatic one, so yeah. But how about you? You played with 370 a lot?
I've driven a manual 370Z, and I've driven the Nismo, one of the earlier Nismos.
Sure.
And you know what? Delightful car.
Yeah.
And now prices got pretty low, right? On 350Zs and 370s. And just recently, they've really, everything's, I get it. Rising tide.
Yep.
But they've been recognized. They are great sports cars, man.
They're cool.
They're often criticized for being not tech innovative enough because they've kind of been stale for a while. Mm-hmm. But for a handling car, they've never been a lightweight car. They've always been a little hefty.
Right.
In the case of the 370Z, what's interesting is that it did lose weight over the previous generation, which hardly ever happens. Yeah, it's lighter than a 350Z.
They took a play out of the NV Miata book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Go back to basics. And the 370 stands for the 3.7 liter V6. Mm-hmm. We're talking 332 horsepower. I think it's a good car. Good balance. Better driver than the 350Z out of the box, except for maybe the Nismo 350Z, which is like a different kind of animal too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love it. How was your experience driving the automatic one?
It was fine.
Yeah.
I didn't have a chance to really push it or do anything with it. It was just kind of take it on a quick run. What I remember, and this was a while ago, I remember the interior was so-so, but I do remember being pretty significant step up from the 350.
Very much,
because the 350, everything is just like, you touch it, you feel like it's going to like crumble under under the weight of your soft touch. But yeah, I like the proportions of the car. I think the proportions are good. You've got kind of the long overhang, short rear, which is the kind of the hallmark of the Z, which is a little bit of like, who pioneered that formula? I guess there's a lot of cars that did that. The Corvettes did it. We're looking at a C1 Corvette right here on the other side of the camera. It's got a little bit of that. Something like a. I guess the early Jag E-types probably is the standard bearer in that.
Really overdid it with the hood length on those, but gorgeous car.
Yeah, like it reminds me of what's that? There's like the Family Guy episode where he's driving like an analog of that car, and it's just like as like this symbol of masculinity, and he's just like ram it through the tunnel, and it barely fits through the tunnel. Kind of similar, very just like masculine forward. Large overhang look. And the Z does it really well, and it's got a long history doing that, and down to the 370. I think it's a good proportioned car, and I think the looks have held up pretty well.
I think so too. I think, the 370Z still looks very modern. Mm-hmm. Always did. Great looking car. Man, they're just great. I'd love to get a Nismo one. It'd be a fantastic car to kick around.
I think that's a car, if you can find, what I think is, as much as the 350 and the 370 has gone up, and we'll talk about the 350 in a second.
Yep.
Some of those kind of later, it's easy to take a cynical approach on some of the 370 models, like the Nismo ones, and be like, oh, they're just trying to get more runway out of an old platform.
Sure.
However, I think some of the late run Nismo cars, they have like 350 horse, I think, up to.
Yeah.
I think those are going to be kind of desirable. If you can get one now, I think the hype of the new car is going to bring the values up on those.
Agreed.
Yep. I think there's going to be people, especially if the new car, if they come out and it's $51,000 MSRP, but dealerships are asking $25K on top, somebody might go, okay, well, hey, I can buy like a decked up Nismo 370 for $35 or whatever. I haven't looked at prices, but I think if you have one now, or you pick one up now, it might even be a little bit too late. I think those cars are going to have some value because it's like, well, I want an NA version of the newer car, so I'll get the older Nismo 370. Yeah. So I think they're going to be fondly remembered. They're kind of I don't want to call it a joke, but the N-Run 370s,
Yeah, no, I totally agree because, like I said, it's a great driving car. You get it with a manual.
Yep.
You get the nicest one you can find. If you can get a Nismo, absolutely. Because they were pretty limited. I don't know. I know it wasn't as much as the 350Z, but the 370Z did have like updates to the engine over the line. That's I guess that's one of the kind of side effects of having a vehicle around for so much longer. You have to do iterations of the engine. It's like the 350Z had the rev up and then the HR and then you have to really be in tune with like
evolve.
Yeah, and it was significant, right? Like the RPM or the RPM top end went up with each iteration of the engine. So there was a lot of those are pretty dynamic things, right? In the same badge, right? You could get an early 350Z and then someone with a later one is going to have completely different performance,
right,
than what you've got. But you got to do your homework. But I think either one of those. But
how about the 350?
How good does a 350 look? Have you seen a stock 350 lately?
So when I was in junior college, a friend who I met there,
the wavy flashback music.
Is there one on?
Oh God! Don't.
We've got a soundboard here. I'm going to push a button. I don't know which one. How about this one? I think that was a sad trombone.
Whoomp whoomp.
So we'll see. That was just superfluous. That has no bearing to what I'm going to say. But what I am going to say is, so when I was in junior college, I had a friend who I met there, and she had. So her dad. Gina Spaghetti, if you're listening out there somehow, which I know you're not, but enjoy. Her dad had he bought brand new, an early like launch 350Z. I don't remember what trim it was. I don't remember if it was the Touring, because they had like the track and the Touring, and then I think the base. They had a few different performance levels.
Was there an enthusiast?
There was an enthusiast spec, that's right.
Yeah.
I think that was like the, not base, it was like base, enthusiast. Then you had track, which you got like Brembo brakes and different wheels and stuff. And then the Touring, you got like a leather and a Bose stereo and things like that.
That's right.
But it was that, I don't remember the name of it. It wasn't Aztec Gold, but whatever that launch burnt orange color was, beautiful
Great
car.
color.
And I remember always telling him, it was like, if he ever wants to sell that car, you let me know. Like, you let me know. And at the time, it was like a 2-year-old car. But I was just like, that's the color. That's the spec. It was a 60.
03, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 03. And of course, he ended up selling it years later, and I never found out about it. And I'm bitter to this very day. But in that launch color, that's one of my favorite launch colors and car. Because it was like this big run up. And the new one's got a launch color too, I think. It's like yellow with like bronze wheels.
That's right.
And a black top.
I want to say it was like a burnt something was the color of the original, the launch color.
Oh, the original, like the 240?
It was like, no, the 350Z you're talking about.
Yeah, that's the color I'm talking about, that burnt orange.
Yeah, it was so good.
Yeah, burnt sienna or
what
something.
a time, just like a little sidestep Z's just for a second, but that period, man, we had the WRX the year before, and then the Z came out. It was just like this amazing, early 2000s, man. I think we stay in the 80s and 90s a lot, but early 2000s had a lot of interesting stuff going on.
Yeah, you had the Evo show up.
A little late to the show,
You had
STI in 04.
STI in 04. You had the RX-8 show up. What year was it? Was it 04 the first? 05? I don't remember when the RX-8 came to the party.
E46 M3.
E46 M3.
E39 M5 was still there.
End of the run, and then even you look at that, you have the E60, which isn't a terribly fondly remembered car, but that's a V. We didn't know how unreliable they were then.
Yeah.
But you had the a V10 powered, M5 and M6.
Z06 Corvette.
Z06 Corvette.
What a time, man!
What a time to be alive.
The horsepower wars.
The problem was I was like just graduating high school.
Oh, we were poor as crap.
So yeah, I had like $0. I mean, whatever. I still have $0, but
we're buying some sweet Galant VR4s though. So.
That's right. Yeah, buddy. But yeah, so the 350 is. We're past the rock bottom on that. Well, we're past the rock bottom on everything. But those cars, you can still get a decent one.
Dude, finding them's a challenge. These things, when it depreciated,
tough.
These things were drift missiles. They were track
you
weapons.
Get an automatic. Pick up an
automatic convertible for nothing.
Yeah. That might be.
No.
I don't. Well,
no,
I'm trying to
Frank.
think. No, I'm trying to put my Billy Bean.
I'm trying
to put my Billy Bean Moneyball hat on and trying to figure is it like if you bought a high mileage automatic NSX like 6 years ago? You're in heaven now.
You're comparing an automatic 350Z to an NSX.
Maybe that's what we do. Is you get the automatic.
The Coors Light's going to his brain, folks.
Oh my god, the brain is blue.
Is there a button for a brain meltdown?
The cat brain is blue. But the thing with, I think if you picked up like an automatic 350Z and did like a Safari build, like you bought it cheap and you did like a
man.
safari build with it or something like that. I think, and you're just keeping matted on dirt trails all the time.
No.
You don't have to worry about shifting.
With dirt coming in through, because you have the top down, obviously.
Top down, screaming out money, anything. Yeah, that's how you do
Jesus,
it.
man.
What you do is you buy it cheap because the top is broken, and then you just never even put the top up anyway.
They were all manual tops, right?
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
I
I
wouldn't be
think they
surprised
are.
if they were.
Okay, so let's steer back to what a 350Z should be. So
Yes.
3.5 liter V6. They
Yeah.
originally had like 287. Like I said, that worked its way up.
Yep, the
But
VQ.
The Nismo. Guys, I should have. I remember these were hanging like 15 to 17K. Super limited run. 350Z Nismo. Yes, it has like this crazy body kit, but the car was seam welded from the factory, like a race car.
They're very cool.
Frank.
I can't stop. I can't. The front end treatment on those,
Bro.
I just can't.
Okay,
I can't
you get
do.
your convertible automatic.
I
I'll get a
can't do.
Nismo. We'll see which one wins that car show.
What I'll do.
Come on.
Fair. No, fair. I don't. It's got the like elongated.
It has a
kinda-
rectangle, like lower air catching.
I know.
It's perfect.
I know. It's a good
No.
car. It's a cool car. The looks never did it for me.
But that's the
on
point.
those.
It's so Fast and the Furious. You have to get it. You have to get it. It's seam welded.
Is
That
it-
balances it out.
Is it kind of like the Japanese mid 2000s version of the like the Dodge Daytona, Plymouth Plymouth Superbird?
Right. Yeah,
Kinda,
I think it
You
is.
know, where it's just like all this body work and some mods and
should've
like
bought one, though,
ugly
man.
in its era. Yeah.
I should have bought one.
You know what the worst thing about those cars is though, and the 370s a little bit.
Okay.
I've never been enjoys the sound of a VQ guy.
Yeah.
It's never done anything for me. You can tell what it is. You hear when going down the street, and you hear less. Well, maybe you hear more of it now.
Yeah.
Where it's coming back up to where you hear those like just straight pipe modified rolling through the mall trying to pick up chicks and like I can't do a good VQ impression, but it's
It's kind of like a
It's
drowning Wookiee. It's not quite a Wookiee, but it's like
yeah. The
a little more-
Wookiee's the VR6.
Yeah, for sure.
Volkswagen VR6.
The
But
funny thing is,
not
if
my
you
noise, of
don't
course.
know what a VQ sounds like, go to any car meet starting in the mid 2000s onward, and you're going to hear some dude revving his cold engine at near red line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
hot
you'll know
import nights.
Yeah, you'll know
Yeah.
what a VQ sounds like.
Are they still doing hot import nights? In those
I
shows?
think they are.
Are they coming?
Yeah,
Boy.
a friend of mine said she went to one recently. I wonder if man, they've been around so long.
Yeah,
there was like kind of stripper things going on, and
There were like
horrible music.
polls and whatnot. Yeah, there were the booth babes. I had a good friend of mine. Him and his cousin would get press passes to go, and so I would tag along with a little press pass, and we would go.
So
but
you're
there were,
seen, by the way.
I can't remember the name of the website they shop for, but it was literally called like boothbabes.com or something like that, or showmodels.edu. I don't know what it was, but it was something like that. And literally, like, we would go out there to hang for the cars, and they'd have a press pass. Be like, all right, I have to spend 15 minutes walking around taking pictures of models at the shows, and that was why they had the pass, was to go take pictures of models at these car shows.
Oh, boy.
But they would do, they would do them at Sears Point, Infineon, or I think it was Infineon at the time.
Infineon, yep.
And so we'd go there and stuff, but. Yeah, a heavy showing of 350Z.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And revving at those hot import night shows. Well, what about the next one further down the line, the Z32?
I like where we're going now.
I know. Well, you should. I hope you should.
You
If
should.
you don't like where we're going, then you need to have a come to Jesus moment, because
Yeah.
you got one of these sitting in your,
It's like a
in
Jesus
your stable, right?
Jesus take the wheel moment.
Exactly.
I do have one of these. I have the first year, which is often panned as the most unreliable, which means that's perfect for me.
Yes.
1990 was the
Okay.
first model year of the 300ZX.
No airbag, right? So you got a unique 90 only steering wheel.
Yep. The 300ZX started in 1990. I have the twin turbo one, which is the only one I care about. I mean, the NA ones are actually fetching a fair price right now too. If a clean one.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I swear you could have gotten a twin turbo with an automatic.
You are completely right.
I think you could get a
can.
twin turbo.
You're completely
in a
right.
2+2 even.
Nope.
Not a
Twin turbo never came with a 2x2 setup.
Okay. Because I think that's what it was. I remember, so I had a friend of mine who had one, and I drove it a little bit when I was in college. It was a burgundy with gray leather twin turbo automatic.
Okay.
Not a 2+2. But in my head, it's like a 2+2 because in my brain, I'm like, oh, it's the worst way that you can get a turbo.
Yeah.
But so I think my brain added 2 extra seats.
Yeah, it's only a 2-seater, and it was
a cool car.
The crazy
front
thing
end was
is,
split, like every single one of them. The front lower air dam was blasted.
well, that's what I also want to point out is if you have doubts, it's really hard to tell if you have a turbo or NA 300ZX. Because you got the badge, you got the turbo badge, right?
Right.
The twin turbo badge that can go away, obviously in time. But you're looking at the low front the front valance basically has 2 slotted areas for
Correct.
the intercoolers. Twin
Yes,
turbo setup,
okay.
right? So that's what you're looking for. A lot of them got swapped over and kept the stock bumpers because those stock valances for the turbos are like unobtainium
Yeah.
for original parts,
Right.
And they all did get split. So you just keep
Technically
them.
wider wheels and tires on a twin turbo, right?
Right,
Not that
but
you would
it's
notice,
the
but-
weirdest thing. 16-inch wheel in the front and rear. So they're both 16, but it grew an inch, but kept the same wheel. It looks like the same wheel.
Correct. Yeah,
except
you would
it's a
know
whole
it's just
inch
like wider on the inner. Yeah.
Such a cool setup. But also another thing, mine didn't come with the original wheels, and finding those stock twin turbo wheels is like
Best of luck to you, my friend.
The rears, because
Yes.
the fronts are the same on the NAs. The
Yes,
NAs
they
are in
are.
a squared setup.
Correct.
We're getting way too much in the weeds on wheels. But anyway, I found like the one set
on
for
wheels.
sale, and I drove like 3 hours to get them. But
Whatever it takes.
keeping it real.
But so that was really my only exposure was drive. He let me drive it a couple of times. Good driving car, automatic, I was 4-speed auto, so whatever.
Yeah.
Once it gets going, it does okay. You can't like launch it or do anything. And,
No, but it was
but
like
in a straight line, it went and it held boost between shifts, which is nice. But good car, comfortable car. For a while, I was looking for a clean NA car with a manual because
Yeah.
the build quality is pretty good on those.
Yeah, they look great.
You get the cool titanium key and
With the
and all
different
that.
colored leather too. I got the red, the black.
Leather. Yeah, and it's I don't know. And for a while, every single NA car on the face of the earth was $4,000. And if
Yeah.
you would look, they were $4,000.
Turbos
Doesn't matter.
were like 7 or
doesn't
8.
matter the color or the mile. Yeah, you can get a clean,
Turbo.
a really. My buddy bought his, and it had under 100,000 miles. I think he paid $8,000 for it.
It's wild.
It was an auto, but still
Not anymore.
It was
You won't
very
get that,
clean.
right?
I think his was a '93.
Okay.
And he ended up selling it to someone out of state. I think he sold it for 12.5 while we were still in college. So I graduated '07. So we're kind of at really probably the low point, almost the low point for those cars as far as value.
Yeah, the
Maybe a
turbos-
couple years later in the heart of recession,
Yeah.
09 era, it would have been the lowest. But
They stayed low for a while. The turbos have just recently like started picking up.
they're still kind of undervalued
I think so.
compared to all
It's
the
a-
other big cars of the era. The
It's an
Supra
icon.
and the
I'd put it up there,
RX-7.
right? It's definitely an icon of the early '90s.
Oh
Japanese
yeah, absolutely.
Sports cars.
Yeah, absolutely. It's was that the one where they had the commercial with like Ken driving Barbie around and like the little like remote control car? And
That
it was
was-
like
yeah, it was
like
horrible.
kind of controversial and
Yeah.
they pulled it. I think.
Yeah. Bad choice.
Good car though.
I like
Good
it's
car.
To be honest, spoiler, it's one of my favorite Z's. Just because
Yeah,
T-tops,
totally.
twin turbo. I mean, 300 horsepower, and then the 350Z took a dip, right? We didn't catch
Right.
back up to that horsepower mark until the 370. So it kind of like, and above like what was before it. I mean, that was a huge power and speed jump.
And that's the thing too. So that car, what's interesting is, and we'll get back into the earlier cars, but the original Z was not exactly a high tech. I mean, it kind of was a little bit. It was overhead cam compared to the stuff of the early '70s was kind of high tech.
True.
But you had like the 280, the Z71, and the Z32, or Z71. That's a Chevy. Z31 and Z32. That was the era of the Z car kind of taking the mantle of like technology,
Right.
and the high tech because they were turbocharged and you can get a digital dash.
Yep.
You leave the door open and your door is ajar. And on the Z32, same deal. Like you have this higher end pushing the boundaries that had 4-wheel steering and had all this
Yep, the high
computer
pass.
controlled this and ABS, and it was like a high tech car, which the 350, 370, and the current Z are not at
Yeah.
all. They're more of the hey, we're giving you less tech, but we're giving you just more analog driving experience.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, it's interesting because if you look at the whole run of the Z car, like half of the time there's like, we're going to be leading the way as far as technology. Then it went away for a bit and then it came back and it was just like, we're definitely not going to be, we're going to be on the trailing end of technology, but it's analog. its performance, its feeling over tech, and pushing boundaries, and more of a throwback experience, which is interesting. But the Z32 was very much the end of that era.
Exactly. Yeah, the Z31 was definitely really in its full stride, like all about tech too, right?
Yes.
Like it was digital gauge. I love the looks. I think the looks of the Z31 300ZX has really come around. I think it's a fantastic.
What do you prefer, early Z31 or late Z31? Because early Z31, you had like the slightly squinty pop-ups that were like didn't fully recess.
No,
and you had
always,
like, you had like was it the 10th anniversary? It would have been the 15th anniversary in '84 with the gold and black.
Oh, that's a good
with
look.
the it had the speakers and like subwoofer like built into the seat and the digital dash. And,
you know what?
And those turbine style wheels.
I feel like I like the middle of the run turbo with that off-center hood scoop.
And
200 ponies galloping out of that
what was
stable.
they had like what was it called, the Shiro edition or whatever? It was like white with white wheels.
That's
and it was
right.
a limited edition. I think end of the run, so like 88, 89
It's
turbo.
fantastic two-tones in the early runs too.
Yeah, I think I'm an early run Z31 guy.
You go NA or turbo?
We gotta go turbo. If you got a choice, you gotta go turbo. Here's the thing. What are your thoughts? Z31, worst generation of the Z car?
No.
I think it is.
More than a 280ZX?
I think so.
I don't think so.
I think so. I'll die on this hill.
I think
I do like the Z31.
It's aged so.
It has
looks
aged
so
well,
good right
especially with the turbos and stuff. But like the low spec, like sky blue, non-turbo 2+2 automatic Z71, I think is the worst of the run of any singular Z car. You know, because here's the thing, and we'll talk about the S130. That's the 280ZX. We'll talk about that generation here in a second.
Yeah, we'll talk about the worst car in a second.
Lies, damn lies, and statistics. But it went from an inline six, which is always the superior setup in a six-cylinder car compared to the V6. V6 was okay. That was a reliable motor, outside of broken exhaust manifold studs. That was a reliable car, reliable motor. It was, I think it was underpowered. It was heavy. The turbo made up sort of 230 horsepower, I think, or was it just 200?
200.
It was 200.
Yeah, that's why the 300ZX, the Z32 twin turbo, was such. I mean, you went to 300. It was faster than the Super Turbo.
Yes.
Out of the box.
Yes.
I mean, wow.
And
First
then
time
you
the
had-
Z car was like the fastest car.
Well, no.
Okay.
Back to your least favorite.
Yeah.
Back to your least favorite of the. Are we
you
done talking
talking
about
about?
Z31? Do we just want to talk about the?
Let's do
the
death
S130?
match. Let's do a death match between
Okay.
the two. Because so the original 280ZX, right?
Yes.
79 was the model year it came out.
280ZX. Yes.
Not the
79.
280Z, the
They call that.
280ZX.
Yeah. They call the. You add the X, but that was I believe the S130 is what that chassis
S130,
code
yeah,
was.
because before that was like the S30.
Correct.
So you have a
an excellent
2.8 because they were still naming convention. Nissan, thank you.
Yeah.
2.8 liter.
Yes.
135 horsepower.
Fuel injected. I thought it was 145.
135.
Okay. Yeah. Reasonable for
Did you
for
miss the
era.
part where we talked about the turbocharged Z31 with 200?
However, what we haven't talked about is the turbocharged S130 with 180 and a boatload of torque. And when that came out, it was, I believe, the fastest accelerating, like, definitely Japanese car. I think it might have been for like a tiny sliver of time the fastest accelerating import car.
Okay.
Period. And we're talking 308 Ferraris, which is not that fast of a car, but although in retrospect, I can't imagine that's faster than
Oh, 911.
a 930 Porsche.
I don't think so.
But I think there is
Definitely not
I'll have to look
handling
it up.
comparable. Let's be honest.
No, but that was a true performance car because I think at the time it ran like a 15 flat and a quarter.
It's pretty good.
When that I believe 80 or was it 81 was the first year of the turbo.
That's a good
80
question.
or 81, nothing was doing a low 15 second or 15 flat quarter mile, like nothing. So that was a tried and true fast car. And then the Z31 came out and it got heavier and added 20 whole horsepower with the turbo. So I would love, and I have owned although I didn't get a chance to drive it more than around the block because it immediately blew a head gasket. I did
Clearly
own-
the better car here.
Clearly the better car. So I bought it as, I think I've talked about it before, just real briefly.
You did. You had a manual too, which is
It was
like,
an 82.
every one of these is an automatic.
Well, the first couple of years you can only get it with an automatic.
The turbos. Every
The
turbo I've seen is like an auto.
The
almost.
turbo, yeah, was a 3-speed auto. It was not a good. It was quick in a line, in a straight line, but like you're cruising down the freeway at like 65 miles an hour, like 3,500 RPM.
Again, clearly the better car, but yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Go on.
But you get a turbo with a manual. Mine was a turbo with a manual, 2+2. It was a 1982. Silver and blue two-tone with a silver and blue two-tone leather interior. Long story short, I bought it as a Lemons car, but it was too nice. I didn't have the heart to chop it up, and so I ended up fixing it, and then it was not fixed, and then I sold it.
Good car.
Got my money out. But that car with a 5-speed is a T5.
Yeah,
It was
solid transmission.
solid transmission. It was in the 5.0 Mustangs and 305 powered Camaros and all that stuff. I would love to own another one of those.
God, good luck finding a manual turbo.
Manual, turbo. I think there's one in cars and bids
Rust
at the moment.
free.
Rust free. You can find them out here in California. But yeah, and that's the thing, because those cars were, you are having the opinion that it was the worst Z car ever produced. At least that generation.
I think
and
so.
So they were.
Yeah. I think the first like 280, like a 79
They're hard
280
to find.
ZX NA, which was the only option with
Yeah.
an auto, might be the absolute worst driving.
2+2.
Oh, ugh. They look good. They're cool.
Yeah, I don't know if it's worse, necessarily that much worse driving than an NA 2+2 automatic Z71 now.
Z31.
Sorry, Z31.
Off-road package.
Chevrolet.
I love it, man.
Chevrolet.
Ever since our
GMC
454
trucks
SS.
exactly are in my brain. But
All right.
yeah, I just
We're getting a little time crunch here, so let's look at the best generation.
probably you're probably
Genesis.
right.
They nailed it. Like
Yeah.
their first album, their freshman
Exactly.
album.
Yeah, Led Zeppelin 1.
Yeah,
you know?
just the 240Z.
How many more
is-
times?
What an absolute icon! And
Yes.
good lord, dude. Speak about timeless car. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably. It's funny that we're talking about this because, like, literally, as I was like driving here to Car Park to record this, I got like an alert, like a push notification on my phone that I think like Camisa just put out like a whole like on the Icons YouTube episode about this very car, and I haven't seen it, but
Yeah.
I'm assuming I don't know what his take is on it, but I would say it's inarguably one of the most impactful cars of the generation.
Huge.
With regards to solidifying Japanese manufacturers as a true player in the space.
Viable sports car creator.
And it was, I mean, you can have the argument that that impact was made by the Toyota 2000 GT, but they sold like 58 of those or something in North America.
Yeah.
And it was basically a supercar. And this said, like, okay, we'll take that very similar formula and we'll make it available for the masses and we'll sell a boatload of them.
Yep.
And they did, and rightfully so, because it. You just look at competitors in its era, and you know, it's a brilliant car, timeless design.
Straight six.
2.4 liter inline six when it dropped.
151
S2 carburetors. Yeah, 150-ish horsepower. Smooth as silk. Lightweight.
Simple.
Well built.
Yeah.
Simple. Independent suspension. Disc brakes. I mean, that sounds rudimentary now, but
No,
like,
but at that time,
you look at 1970, like,
dude, you look at
you know,
almost 1990 Mustang GTs with drum brakes.
yeah. And you on paper, it's just like, oh yeah, it's like a cheaper Corvette missing 2 cylinders.
They
But
did
like,
have
I would
drums.
much rather have that car on a twisty road than a C3 Corvette.
Yeah, they had drums in the rear, but that was like pretty standard.
Oh, yeah.
fare back then. But
Yeah, that was
also
hardcore.
like a lot lighter than like, you know, the following sports cars, like the American sports cars, right? That's the other thing. It came in lower weight, so that's why the speed and the numbers were up, because the horsepower didn't impress too many people.
Right.
But like the fact that the car was nimble, lightweight, great suspension setup, plus an inline six is wonderful to work on compared to a V8.
Oh yeah. Massive engine bays in those cars. That's why, you know, so many V8s got stuck into them with the Scarab remakes,
Right.
and all that. And then in '75, when you were looking at the 280, and now you've got fuel injection.
You skipped the 260Z though.
Well, it's skippable.
1974.
I know. Well,
Get your hands on a 260Z.
big bumpers and a 2.2 liter displacement bump.
Well, and it went down on horsepower, right? Because of the fuel regulations.
Yeah,
at
I think
the time.
so. Yeah.
So it went down to like a 140.
And the rating, SAE rating.
At the end, though, I think they made ultimately 165 when they were like unneutered. So
Correct.
it was a little bit of a power bump. It'd be cool to have one just because that 1 year.
Yeah, I remember vividly as a young child, riding around in the backseat of my dad's daily driver, his '79 Accord hatchback with a 5-speed. Actively being like, okay, Dad, you got to tell me here, like, what's the difference? I see that one says 240, that one says 260, that one says 280.
But
they all look the same to me as young, whatever, 7-year-old, 6-year-old me.
Papa, what is the difference?
Help me, Papa.
What is the difference? I don't know. I have a French accent.
This Dobson feed. And so yes, I remember talking about that, and he was like, well, this one's got this, and this one was 1 year, and my dad's not exactly a car guy, but he knew enough about them, and he always like, oh, I like those cars, and I remember being like, I like those cars too, and so I've always kind of had, the one, as you call it, the worst he ever made is the only one I've ever owned.
Wow.
I had a friend in high school he was deep into the woods in Z cars, so he had a 71 240, he had a 78 280Z that got killed by a drunk driver. The car did, not him. And he had a 280ZX turbo that he was going to swap that motor into the one that got killed by the drunk driver. But just really cool cars. I'd love to own one, but I don't think I ever can at this point. I mean, I can, but those were the affordable thinking man sports car for a very long time.
Still kind of is. Comparable to other notable sports cars in history.
Well, sure,
Yeah,
but
right.
I would say they're no longer necessary. I mean, they're affordable, but they're not that affordable. They're
Right.
not what they once were.
No.
They used to be like, you pull one out of a tow yard for $1,500 and put another $1,500 in it, and you're hanging out there with air-cooled 911s, and that's not the case anymore.
Well, the price isn't hanging out with air-cooled 911s either, though.
Not quite. I mean, if you have an absolute cherry one, but like a very, 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 very nice driver one is still at least at what?
30 to 40.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Which that was a $4,000 car all day for a long time. And so I don't know if I'll ever be able to get one. Do you think, out of all the Z cars, what do you think it's going to be? Is that the 350 right now? Is the affordable thinking man's sports car that you can get for not a ton of money? It's come up a bit.
Well, no, the problem is like, and I don't want to be too long on this, but like 350Zs were so cheap for so long,
Yeah.
and they were such like an iconic like street racing car with all the video games, Fast and the Furious,
Yes.
you name your poison there. But the problem
Heroin.
was, yeah, good call.
Yeah.
Mine's penicillin for
Oh,
all
well,
things like that.
there you go. Communicable.
Yeah, well,
Got to catch them all with
heads up,
STDs.
heads up, listeners. No, honestly, like
Wrap it up
350Zs got so low. And
Yes.
we know the depreciation curve, what it does to sports cars.
Yes.
Like these things got raced, they got trashed.
They did.
And now to find, like, that's why I asked you at the beginning of the show, when's the last time you saw a clean 350Z? It's a very rare thing. It's an incredibly rare thing.
Yeah, you know what? That guy that you just saw him over there, a gentleman named here, David, who works over here at Car Park. He actually had one. He recently sold it, but he bought it from a guy and flipped it. It was an automatic white with, I think, like a burnt orange interior automatic coupe. And it was clean, and it was clean because it was an automatic. Because if it was a manual, it would have the snot kicked out of it.
Yeah. Slammed.
It'd have truck
Trashed.
nuts on it. It'd be full. It'd have one fender just covered in stickers.
God.
It'd be 50% like burning smoke, oil smoke, and 50% vape cloud behind
Yeah,
it.
truck nuts on the outside and smelling like D's nuts on the
Exactly. Yeah, like Fruity Pebbles scented.
So not
vape.
smell like freak.
You know what?
That was a little
I'm not here
personal,
to
buddy.
brag, but
Damn. Okay, well that's a compliment. I'll take
exactly,
that.
Manscaped.
I was gonna go
baloney.
baloney.
Yeah, play the guitar. So,
Okay, so, should we close out our Z section here?
I think we should, because I think the last bastion of hope is probably the 350 as far as if you want to get a bargain one. But,
right now, yeah.
or the aforementioned
370.
like Z31 and S130
Z31,
automatic.
100%. They're starting to edge up, but you can get an NA manual Z31 for still a good price.
Yeah, not fast at all.
They look great.
They look good.
Cool looking car.
Yeah, good one. Yeah, if you just want to play in like, that'd be a good cruiser.
Yeah.
Just a good cruiser.
So too long
reliable.
didn't listen. The new
Right.
Z car, we're both giving it like enthusiastic thumbs up.
Yeah.
I'm glad. And what other company needs it more than Nissan right now? I mean, let's be
Yeah, they
honest.
need a lot of things. We can do a saving Nissan episode.
They're kind of doing it.
Although
they're kind of doing it, my man.
Yeah, when we did our saving Mitsubishi episode way back when, if we had made that a saving Nissan one, we would have said start off with the Z car, and we probably would have. At least I would have penned it out exactly how they did it.
Yeah, I knew they were going to put that engine in something. They had,
and I'm glad they did, because by all reports, it's a good one. So
I celebrate it. I think the Z is Nissan's sports car. I think it's everything, and I'm thank God they did the right thing here.
They did.
There's so many wrong choices they could have made.
Yeah, and they seem like they're marketing right. They're getting it in front of the right people. People
We're
are
excited.
singing praises. And speaking of marketing, my friend, should I throw some marketage towards your way? And here's the 8-ball. You can consult the 8-ball.
Yeah, I like
because
that.
we're going to do our automotive print ad quiz game. Today we're sitting side by side, so I'm going to have to keep my cards breasted, so to speak.
Emphasis on breast.
Don't get excited. And what I will do is, for the uninitiated, I will read a magazine ad. Magazines, those are things from the past. Yep. And I will, it's basically going to be a print ad copy from one of these magazines for an automobile. We're talking the 80s, the 90s, up to the early 2000s. And I'm just going to read the print copy. I will sub out and redact some of the pertinent information, i.e. manufacturer, model, all that fun stuff. And it's going to be on my friend Chadwick here to guess, educated or not, the make and model of said vehicle. So with that said, Chadwick, are you ready?
Do you want to play a game?
Yeah, definitely.
Let's do this, man.
What is this?
What do you got?
A blank space where where I saved it. I just want to open, but it's okay. I've got a backup.
It's a Peugeot.
Exactly. Yeah. It didn't work.
It did.
It's a Peugeot. Really cool ad. So this one, it's a 2-page spread, and the car is cantered at a little bit of an angle, 3/4 shot on the front. Right there's water kicking off the tires. There's a cloud heavy sunset in the background with the light breaking through the clouds. The vehicle is white. Right, and it's taking probably 75% of the ad with a little bit of print on the side.
I'm aroused.
Also in the corner, there's a little bit of a little bit of the same car. It's in some sort of racing livery. Appears to be on a track.
Jesus.
Okay. It then says, "Road and track 10 best." Now I'm gonna tread lightly here because it says the name of this vehicle several times. I'm gonna try and not say it.
Be careful, my friend.
Way more than it usually does. And then up in the clouds, where the light is breaking through, it says, quote, "one of the 10 best in the world," end quote, by Road and Track. Blank. The automotive press has finally found enough superlatives to accurately describe the awesome blank. Road and Track, quote, "As for its world-class credentials, consider acceleration in the sub 5.0 range to 60. With the quarter mile following in a mere 13.4 sec."
Wow.
They didn't want to say the full word, seconds. Quote, "Ponder a skid pad performance of 0.94 G, and if you doubt a blank's agility, check its 65.7 mile per hour slalom. How awesome? We're talking a technological tour de force capable of 375 horsepower at 5,800 RPMs, 370 pound-feet of torque at 4,800 RPMs. We're talking about the car that set 10 world and international speed and endurance records in 24 hours. A specially modified blank ran the equivalent of 10 Indy 500 races back to back at an average speed of over 175 miles per hour. We're talking about the ultimate blank. The latest and greatest version of the legendary American Dream car. Very simply, one of the best cars in the world." Chadwick, what vehicle are we talking about, my friend?
That was a boner-inducing almost. That was
As
brilliant.
it should be.
Wow.
As it should be. Yes. And I know you're just talking about my voice and not the actual
Clearly.
print copy. But it's interesting because there's definitely information for you to chew on.
Yeah, you're like my print copies up here, Chadwick.
Exactly. It's real and it's fantastic.
So speaking of boner-inducing, this is
Yes.
something where the owners probably need some help in that department.
Potentially. Potentially.
I think I might have this one, Frank.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think I do because
Okay.
I know they were into racing at the time, and this car was awesome on Gran Turismo, and I think it had a yellow and black color pattern. If I'm not too far off,
Perhaps. This one is clad in white.
Okay, interesting.
Yes.
So I'm thinking American, that kind of power and those
American dream cars.
handling, that skid pad performance is insane.
Yeah.
For the early 2000s,
Maybe.
possibly late 90s.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
or
go
the
ahead.
80s even. I don't know.
Possibly. That's a good point. Good. So there's some options. Damn
You
it.
have options, my friend.
I'm going to blow two options on two very close things.
Oh, boy.
My first thought with 375 horsepower
Yes.
was the original Corvette C5 Z06. Final answer.
That is incorrect, my friend. However, you are quite close. You are quite close. The hint I will give you is correct basic car.
Okay.
Wrong generation and submodel.
Yep, because that gives me my second guess, which I'm going to blow immediately. 8-ball, I love you, but I don't need you on this one, buddy. This is
that's yet to be determined.
This is going to be a car I wish I had purchased when they were somewhat affordable in teal. This is a C4 ZR1 Corvette, my friend.
The automotive press has finally found enough superlatives to accurately describe the awesome ZR1. So this is the C4 ZR1, the first year of the ZR1 when it had 475 375 versus then it went to 405, I believe.
Nope, the Z06
Because the Z06 was 385 and then went to 405.
That's right, and I thought it was 370. That's why I messed up.
Yeah,
and that was in 2002.
Very, very similar.
Yeah, very similar numbers.
Yeah.
This was like the first American supercar to compete at that time period with like
pretty much
exotics. I mean, it was
pretty
wild.
much. The whole car was widened. It had a specific rear end treatment.
We're talking
Lotus designed engine.
Wild.
And produced, or no, it was produced by Lotus Design. Did the head work and design, and the engine itself was produced by, I don't remember her. I don't remember who made it up in her. It wasn't Merc. Was it Mercruiser? No.
It was something. Because it was unlike the regular Corvette engine. It was dual overhead cam,
all aluminum, I believe,
and then like double the amount of valves I think you got in a regular Corvette V8 at the time.
32 valve. Very cool car.
Handling was out of this world for a Corvette at that time. Or any American car, especially any American car at that time.
Yes. No, just
it was a world beater.
Definitely it was, but they didn't sell a ton of them. And that's a car I'm surprised, like, you can still get a very decent one for like...
It's up there now. It's climbing.
I think you can get a really good one for like low 20s.
I passed on one for like 17 that had like decent mileage a couple years back, and now I think they're in the 20s, the 30s for solid ones. And like Corvettes, the owners don't drive them as much, so a lot of them are like in that 20 to 50,000 range.
Yeah, and they're going to ask all the money because they never drive it, but that just means every piece of rubber's gone to pot.
And the tires.
And it's still like GM quality in like most of the car, so it's like...
Good looking. C4s are starting to look really
I've always liked
damn
C4s.
sexy. But
I've always had trouble achieving an erection with
anything else.
Exactly. No, but as you were saying, it's just that's the demo of this car is Mr. or Mrs. Trouble to achieve an erection. And
nailed it.
I've just always liked those cars. I was born in '83, and so as was this car, although they didn't have one in '83. C4's a special spot in my heart, and so I would love to get one. Any C4, but a ZR. I mean, you got to go shoot the moon, get the ZR1. Oh, we should go halvesies on one of these. We should find a cheap one of this or whatever.
Yeah, we got to own a Corvette.
Any generation.
Yeah, agreed.
C4, C5, C6.
All right, man. Well, to celebrate my victory, which is a rare thing lately.
What have you been working on, actually?
We're going to do some PCP here?
We should, yeah.
Are these guys cool, man? Are these
Oh,
guys...
they get wet.
Oh,
yeah?
Yeah,
they're in it. They're in it to win it or abuse it. But,
my PCP,
what have you been up to?
So I got some Japanese PCP,
boy.
which is pretty good. Reliable.
Yeah,
it's reliable stuff, yeah.
Kobe PCP.
Yeah, right. A Wangu or
Wagyu dust.
Yeah. So PCP was bodywork, which is definitely not one of my strengths. But the Honda Accord,
Yes.
totally. The rest of the car's great. Like
It is.
physically, the condition wise, fantastic. Inside too. The front bumper, it's the one that showed the mileage.
Yeah.
and it's definitely touched.
Stands to reason.
It's touched some statically heavy items. It looks like.
Got it.
So spider webbing
Parking
throughout the
ballards.
bumper. Yeah, everything. So the spider webbing from strong impacts on a plastic
Yes.
bumper. It just needed to be done. It just really detracted from the overall look of the car. So full bring back for me is sanding it down, trying to get it plain, which is actually hard to do with those kind of like cracks.
Right.
Because if you miss them, paint doesn't hide anything, guys. Like
No.
Bodywork 101
Paint
is
don't
like,
lie.
yeah, as much you can put as many coats as you want. But it's not going to matter. So stripped it down completely, primed the heck out of it. I didn't have to use any filler because I
Good.
sanded it so plain. I'm not a fan of using filler. Don't use filler unless you have to, right?
Yeah.
Rock
Especially on plastic bumpers.
Right. It just
Because
doesn't.
anytime like anything even bumps into it, instead of coming right back, it's just going to come off in a
Yeah.
big old sheet.
Big old chunk and take the paint with it, which is the timely part.
Bad news booze.
Primer, putting down some good base coat, get a quality paint. I use for rattle cans for bumpers because most of these cars are actually assembled like from this period with the bumpers painted separate from the body, so they never quite match, and the paint thickness is always different.
And that's the thing. The substrate is different, and so metallics especially are going to lay down different. There's going to be a static charge that's going to develop in the plastics when it goes down. So matching it's always going to be super difficult. You walk by, I mean, some cars are notorious for it, but you walk by a new car,
you can notice.
you can catch it.
And then the sun's different. Like the sun's hitting it differently than the rest of the paint.
The flop's different.
Yeah, exactly. So the big thing is like your finishing, right? So always finish, baby.
Yeah.
Get the paint down. I let that sit for a while and then put the coat, probably 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and I put the clear coat right on it.
Bang.
And I put 5 coats of clear because I have a very serious wet sanding procedure I follow.
Right.
Starting with like 1,000 grit to get out the orange peel and working my way up to 5,000.
Cool.
And after that, orbital buffer, you do the compound, you do polish, wax. Came out gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like it looks really good right now. I gotta show you in person next time you're over. It came out good. Came out really good.
Glad to hear it. That car's getting close then, right?
It is. It's got some axles, and we'll talk about that painful situation on the next one.
Another day.
Oh,
Yes.
boy. So, how about your PCP of choice, my friend?
Well, I want to keep it Honda.
Ooh, yeah.
Not my little beater daily driver Civic hybrid 5-speed. That thing's just trucking. It's being
like
a Civic.
being a Honda.
Nothing to be done there. But so my mom reached out to me. She's like, "Hey, the Honda, it's due for a smog." And her Honda is she's the original owner. It's a 2006 S2000 Laguna Blue Pearl, black interior.
Your mom's Honda is cooler than your Honda.
Absolutely, exactly. Yeah, her Honda would beat up my Honda and take its lunch money. 68,000 original miles. She never, ever, ever drives it anymore. The last time it's been driven was back in like September, when she had to move it and the battery was stone dead. Wouldn't even take a jump. So I went and got it. It was an OEM battery, had it replaced under warranty. They gave me a bunch of grief about it. The dealership did. They're like, "Oh, well, you have to have the whole car here in order for us to warranty it."
Dude.
I'm like, "Well, that's fine if you're willing to pay for the tow here, because this battery is it's got EPS, electronic power steering. So I can get it running. The moment you turn the wheel, it would put too much of a drain. It would kill the car."
Yeah.
And so I said, "Yeah, if you want to pay to get it towed in here, I'll wait. You go ahead and dispatch the truck. I'll wait."
Right.
And so they tested the battery. "Yeah, the battery's bad. It's under warranty." I'm like, "Okay, cool."
Wow.
But anyways, that was the last time it was driven. And before that, the last time it was driven was 2 years ago from today, because that's the last time it needed to pass smog. So it just sits, and it doesn't sit in the garage. It's outside with double car covers on it.
We need to review that car, by the way.
That's my project, is saving this car at this point.
And it sounds like it needs some maintenance.
So I drove it around, I got it smogged. You can tell where like critters have been climbing between the car covers and like scratching the clear coat a little bit, trying to get up under it. Thankfully there's no rodent damage, but there's a bunch of like snail shells up in the engine bay where critters have like going up there to like snack on their stuff and take it up there as a place to chill. There's like surface corrosion on some of the aluminum under the hood because it's just sitting.
Yeah, moisture doesn't get out from the covers.
The tires are date coded 2012. I don't think it's had an oil change probably since around those tires were put on.
Boy.
So I drive it just so I can get it smogged so she can get tags on it.
You know a guy who could bring that thing back.
Well, it doesn't need a whole lot. The common issue on those is timing chain tensioners.
Yeah.
Start to go, and then so it when it gets warmed up, you hear it rattling. So I need to do the
Yeah.
timing chain tensioner in it, which isn't that bad to do. I can do all this stuff, but it needs to be out of the elements. It needs a good home. So I might be in contact with the guys here. I've mentioned it in passing to the guys here at Car Park. As far as having it housed here. Before I do that, it needs a full paint correction. I need to clean the engine bay out, get all the rat residue out. It needs a major service.
Yeah.
You know, fluids, anything made of rubber, all of that stuff. It needs new tires. It needs all that stuff done.
Yep.
And kind of the beauty of a facility like this that we're currently recording in now is if she moves it out of the elements, it's infinitely better for the car. It'll be here on a tender. It'll be always ready to drive should she decide she actually wants to finally drive the thing.
It should be on a Tinder too.
It should be on Tinder. It should be a tender.
One of those older models that looks
potentially
younger.
Grinder. And it should be on... The thing with it too is she can then put it on something like Haggerty.
Yeah, you bet.
And so she'll save, she might have to pay, $300 to $400 a month to have it housed here.
At least
but she'll save probably $100 a month in insurance costs.
Yeah,
because you can have it on agreed value.
Yeah.
And if something were to happen for it, the experience will be better. Trust me, we are not sponsored by Haggerty. I'm just saying this as a Haggerty person. Haggerty, if you're out there, love to take you out on a date and see if you do want to sponsor us. But that said, I think she gets some of the money back.
We date hard.
We do.
We date real hard.
I am that kind of girl, and so I think it would be better for the car. And so I'm going to. That's my project. Is I got it smogged. I drove it around. It set the smog monitors. I didn't want to rev it beyond like 3,500 RPM because the oil could be water at this point. Like I don't, it's on level, but it's old oil, and so it's the original. It's an all original car.
Yeah.
It's a very uncommon and desirable color. My mom's owned it since new. It's low mileage. It's probably a $40,000+ car.
I'd say so, yeah.
And not that we're going to sell it. Like this thing is going to be in my kid's going to end up with this car. So that's the new project. I was able to get it smogged and done, but now it's like I've got this bug in my ear. Like,
yeah,
I need to save this car and drive it, and I don't even care if I'm paying to put the money into it. It's worth it, and it needs to happen. And then I can drive the car. She can drive the car. The car needs to be staying driven. We're never going to sell it, so we can run it to 400,000 miles. It's not going to matter because we're not selling it.
Doesn't matter yet. Cool.
But yeah, so that is where I'm at. I need to stay. So my parents are going to Italy on a trip in like 3 weeks, and when they're gone, I think I'm going to steal it and do all of these things.
Nice.
And then when they're back in town, I'll be like, look, here it is. We're keeping it here at Car Park or elsewhere, and now the car is saved. And maybe I have to sell a beater project that I need to sell anyways in order to make this happen, but it would be worth it. And then I'll kind of have stolen an S2000.
It's not a bad thing to do.
No. So
well, yeah,
that was my update on the project.
That's awesome, man. And you're doing God's work, right? You got to save the S2000.
Yes, car gods.
So thanks again, guys, for joining us. I know it's been a super fun
to a new location.
Z episode in a cool location. Follow us on the other social medias. Frank, where can we follow you, man?
Boy, so if you want to follow me personally and professionally, that's going to be on the Instagram at The Photographer's Garage. Same with on YouTube at The Photographer's Garage. We are collectively on both of those things, APA Podcast, because we are another pointless automotive podcast. And Chadwick, how about you personally and professionally? Where the people might find you?
Yeah, if you want to follow me on YouTube and see me working on cars that are a lot less value than what we see around us right now at our current location. You can follow me at Auto Obsessive Garage. Same on Instagram. I'll post something up every once in a while. But
the gram.
Yeah, thanks again for stopping by, guys. We really appreciate it. As always, take care.
Bye.
Peace.